The Telvari ship came down through Earth's orbital station like a silver needle pushing through dirty cloth. It was beautiful. Everything the aliens built was beautiful, and everything they said was poison wrapped in silk. High Arbiter Olen walked into the reception hall with the slow, careful steps of someone who believed the ground beneath him was barely worth touching. He was old, older than most nations on Earth. His skin was pale gray, stretched thin over a tall frame, and his eyes were the color of dying stars. Behind him walked 6 attendants, each one dressed in robes that probably cost more than an entire Earth city produced in a year. They looked around the human station the way someone might look at a child's drawing stuck to a refrigerator door. Polite, patient, completely unimpressed. General Lee Dong-soo sat at the far end of the table and watched them enter. He did not stand. He had a scar that ran from his left ear down to his jaw, a gift from the Ganymede massacre 12 years ago, when Karathi warships had burned a human colony to ash, and the council had called it a navigational incident. 40,000 people, mothers, children, engineers who had spent their whole lives building something out of nothing on a frozen moon, all gone. And the galaxy's highest court had written 1 paragraph about it and moved on to more important things. Dong-soo had not moved on. Olen began his address. He called it a census review, but everyone in the room knew what it really was. A reminder. A reminder that Earth was classified as Tier 0, the lowest. A civilization that had not earned faster-than-light travel on its own, that had no energy shields, no galactic standing, no voice. The Protection Mandate, signed 22 years ago when humanity first made contact with the Council of the Stars, allowed the 11 elder species to extract Earth's rare minerals in exchange for technology that was already centuries out of date by galactic standards. It was not a partnership. It was a leash. Olen spoke about humanity the way a teacher speaks about a slow student. He praised their potential. He admired their resilience. He reminded them, gently, that the galaxy was vast, and that younger species must learn patience. His attendants nodded along. Dong-soo's knuckles were white under the table. When the address was over, Olen and his delegation returned to their ship without shaking a single human hand. They never did. That night, deep inside a classified military facility beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, Dong-soo sat across from a woman who had not slept in 3 days. Dr. Yoon Hana was 41 years old. She had dark circles under her eyes, ink stains on her fingers, and a mind that had quietly terrified every physicist on Earth for the last decade. 12 years ago, the day after the Ganymede massacre, she had been pulled out of her university lab and brought to a place that did not officially exist. They told her one thing: find a weapon. Find something the Council had never seen. Find something impossible. She found dark matter. The Council's greatest scientists had tried to harness dark matter 4,000 years ago. They had declared it impossible, too unstable, too dangerous, too unpredictable. They abandoned the research and never looked back. Hana did not care what they had declared. She spent 8 years failing. She spent 2 more years almost dying in laboratory explosions. And then, on a cold Tuesday morning, she stabilized a dark matter sample for the first time in known galactic history. She compressed it. She shaped it. She turned into something her team called black glass, a substance that bent space, swallowed energy, and made anything coated in it invisible to every sensor the galaxy had ever built. Humanity had found the answer that the oldest civilizations in the universe had given up on. Project Godeha moved fast after that. Warships were designed in secret. They were built inside a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Neptune, far from any alien trade routes or observation satellites. The hulls were coated in black glass. The weapons were dark matter cannons, devices that fired compressed distortions in space-time itself. Not plasma, not energy. Something worse. Something that did not destroy a target so much as erase the space it occupied. Admiral Kang Taeho stood in the hidden shipyard and looked at what humanity had built. 27 ships. They were black. Not painted black, but truly black. The kind of black that seemed to drink in light and give nothing back. They floated in the asteroid's hollow core like sleeping predators. He had named the fleet Geomanpado, the Black Tide. Taeho was a quiet man. He had served in Earth's small defense force for 30 years. He had watched the Ganymede footage. He had sat through every council address, every diplomatic humiliation, every reminder that humanity was small and should be grateful for what it was given. He had swallowed all of it, and he had waited. Captain Park Sora, commander of the flagship Godaya, stood beside him on the observation platform. She was younger, sharp-faced, quick-eyed, with the kind of confidence that came not from arrogance, but from absolute certainty in her own skill. She watched the fleet, and then turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Choi Yuna, who was reviewing system readiness on a datapad. "They think we're still building mud huts," Sora said. Yuna looked up. She was 26, the youngest officer ever assigned to the Black Tide. She had graduated top of her class in tactical warfare, and then been quietly erased from every military record. As far as the galaxy knew, she did not exist. "Good," Yuna said. "Let them." Far away on the Nithari homeworld, emissary Sulin sat in a dim room and composed a message. Sulin had spent 10 years living among humans, studying them, eating their food, learning their music, watching the way they looked at the stars, not with wonder, but with hunger. Sulin had grown to respect them, then to fear for them, and now simply to fear what they were becoming. The message was addressed to High Arbiter Olen. It was short. "You have underestimated these people. Whatever is coming, you are not ready." Olen received it on his ship as it passed Saturn's rings on the way out of the solar system. He glanced at the sender, recognized Sulin's name, and deleted it without reading a single word. Behind him, in the black silence beyond Neptune, 27 warships waited in the dark. The Verath Expanse was a stretch of space between two dying gas giants, filled with asteroids rich in minerals that half the galaxy wanted. Earth had been mining there for 6 years. Small operations, quiet work, the kind of thing the Council barely noticed. Until the Karathi decided they wanted it. 300 Karathi warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a single wave. They filled the expanse like a wall of iron and fire. Each ship was massive, built for war in the old way, with heavy armor, plasma batteries, and the kind of brute force that had conquered star systems for centuries. Fleet Marshal Draven commanded them from the bridge of his flagship, a dreadnought called the Burning Arm. He was Karathi through and through, tall, thick-skinned, with 4 arms and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and then hit with a hammer a few times for character. Draven opened a channel to every human ship and station in the expanse. His message was simple. Earth had 72 hours to surrender all claims to the region. Every mining platform, every cargo hauler, every piece of human equipment was to be handed over or destroyed. If Earth refused, Draven promised what he called corrective action. He did not explain what that meant. He did not need to. Everyone remembered Ganymede. The message was broadcast on all galactic channels. Every species in the Orion Arm heard it. That was the point. It was not just a threat, it was a show. The Karathi were reminding the galaxy what happened to small species that reached too far. On Earth, General Lee Dong-soo received the broadcast in his office at midnight. He read it twice, then called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, every senior military and civilian leader was in a room deep beneath the mountains. The civilian ministers were afraid. Some of them argued for giving up the expanse. It was just rocks, they said. Minerals, not worth a war. One of them, a woman with shaking hands, said the words that Dong Su had been hearing for 22 years. We can't fight them. Dong Su stood up. The room went silent. Surrender is what they've trained us to do for 22 years, he said. His voice was flat and hard, like a blade dragged across stone. Not today. He walked to the console and entered a code that only 3 people on Earth knew. The code activated a communication channel to the hidden shipyard beyond Neptune. On the other end, Admiral Kang Tae-ho answered. It's time, Dong Su said. Tae-ho had been expecting the call for years. He simply nodded and closed the channel. Then he turned to his communications officer and gave the order to assemble all captains for briefing. Within the hour, 27 captains stood in a dark briefing room inside the asteroid. Tae-ho stood at the front and explained the situation in the Varath expanse. He showed them the Korathi fleet positions, 300 ships arranged in a standard blockade pattern, spread across the mining zone in neat, predictable lines. He showed them the sensor coverage, long-range detection grids, patrol routes, early warning satellites. The Korathi had set up their defenses by the book. It was textbook military work, professional, thorough, and completely useless against what was coming. The plan was called Operation Mulgal, Undertow. The Black Tide fleet would travel to the Varath expanse in full stealth. They would pass through the Korathi detection grids without being seen, slide past every patrol ship, and position themselves directly inside the enemy formation. Not around it. Inside it. When the signal came, they would drop stealth simultaneously and strike before the Korathi even understood what had appeared among them. Captain Park Sora listened to the briefing with a still face and bright eyes. When Tae-ho finished, she asked one question. Rules of engagement? Controlled devastation, Tae-ho said. We hit them hard enough to break them. Not hard enough to kill them all. I want survivors. Sora raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She understood. Dead fleets told no stories. The galaxy needed witnesses. In the engineering bay of the Godeha, Dr. Yoon Hana was running final checks on the black glass systems when Sora found her. Hana had bags under her eyes that looked like bruises, and she was talking to herself as she read data off a monitor. You should stay on the station, Sora said. This isn't a test. We're going into live combat. Hana did not look up from her screen. I built the teeth, she said quietly. I should be there when we bite. Sora stared at her for a long moment, then nodded and walked away. There was no point arguing with the woman who had done the impossible. The fleet launched at 0400 hours, Earth Standard Time. 27 ships slipped out of the asteroid shipyard, one by one, like shadows peeling off a wall. They moved through the outer solar system in complete silence. No engine heat, no energy signature, no light. The black glass coating absorbed everything. To the rest of the universe, they simply did not exist. Lieutenant Choi Yuna sat at the tactical console on the Godehea's bridge and monitored the enemy positions as they traveled. The Korathi detection network was impressive by galactic standards. Layered sensor fields, roaming patrol ships, automated warning buoys spread across light years of space. Any normal fleet would have been spotted 100 times over. The black tide passed through all of it, like wind through an open window. Yuna tracked their progress in silence. When they cleared the third and final detection layer without a single alarm, she looked up at Sora. They don't even know we exist, she whispered. Sora leaned back in her captain's chair and watched the stars on the view screen. Somewhere ahead, 300 Korathi warships sat fat and confident in a system they thought they owned. She allowed herself a small smile. In the Vareth Expanse, Fleet Marshal Draven was enjoying his evening meal when his intelligence officer brought the latest status report. All sectors clear. No sign of human military movement anywhere. Earth's civilian ships had already begun pulling back from the mining platforms, just as Draven had expected. The humans were folding. They always folded. Draven laughed, a deep rumbling sound that shook his chest. He told his officers to begin preparations for the corrective bombardment of Earth's remaining stations. The humans had another 40 hours on the clock, but Draven liked to be ready early. He finished his meal and went to sleep in his quarters, satisfied that the operation was going exactly as planned. Outside his flagship, in the black and silent space between the asteroids, 27 dark shapes drifted closer. They made no sound. They cast no shadow. They were already inside his formation, and not a single alarm had fired. Admiral Kang Tae-ho sat on the bridge of the Godaiha, watching the Karathi dreadnought through the viewscreen. He could see the lights in Draven's personal quarters from here. That was how close they were. He folded his hands and waited for morning. Fleet Marshal Draven woke to a normal morning. His officers brought him reports. His coffee was hot. His 300 warships held their positions across the Vareth Expanse in perfect formation, their sensors painting the surrounding space in calm, steady green. There was nothing out there, nothing at all. He walked onto the bridge of the burning arm and settled into his command chair. The countdown clock on the main screen showed that Earth had 31 hours left on the ultimatum. Draven expected they would surrender within 20. He had done this before, to the Selkari, to the Nithari border colonies, to half a dozen smaller species that had dared to claim what the Korathi wanted. The pattern was always the same. Threaten, wait, collect. At exactly 0600 hours, Varath time, every alarm on every Korathi ship screamed at once. Draven shot to his feet. The tactical display, which had been green and empty a heartbeat ago, was now filled with contacts. 27 of them. They had appeared out of nothing, not dropping out of faster-than-light travel, not approaching from any direction. They were simply there, as if someone had pulled back a curtain and revealed them standing in the room the whole time. And they were inside the formation, not at the edges, not approaching from a safe distance. They were sitting in the gaps between Karathi warships, so close that some of them were within visual range. Draven stared at the view screen. The nearest human ship was less than 4,000 meters away. It was black, a deep, terrible black that seemed to pull the light out of the stars around it. It had no visible weapons, no engine glow, no running lights. It just hung there in the void like a hole cut in the fabric of space. "What?" Draven started. A voice filled the bridge. It came through on every channel. Karathi military frequencies, council diplomatic bands, open galactic broadcast. It was calm, measured, and spoke in perfect galactic standard with a slight human accent. Fleet Marshal Draven. Admiral Kang Tae-ho's voice was unhurried, as though he had all the time in the world. "You are surrounded. You entered this system to punish us. I have entered this system to educate you. Withdraw now, or I will demonstrate what your council failed to imagine." The bridge was silent. Every Karathi officer was frozen, staring at their screens, at the impossible contacts that had appeared from nowhere. Draven's 4 hands gripped the armrests of his chair. His mind raced. 27 ships. He had 300. The numbers were absurd. Whatever trick the humans had used to get here undetected, it did not change basic mathematics. Draven was a warrior. He had never retreated in his life. "All ships," he said, his voice rough and loud. "Open fire." 300 Karathi warships turned their weapons on the Black Tide fleet and fired everything they had. The Vareth Expanse lit up like a sun being born. Plasma lances, kinetic slugs, energy torpedoes, particle beams, thousands of shots from hundreds of ships, all converging on 27 targets. It was enough firepower to crack a small moon. It was the concentrated fury of one of the galaxy's oldest warrior species, unleashed without restraint. The shots hit the human ships, and nothing happened. The black glass armor did not deflect the attacks. It did not reflect them. It simply drank them in. Energy disappeared on contact, pulled into the dark matter coating like water into black sand. Kinetic slugs struck the hulls and stopped dead, their momentum stolen by gravitational distortions in the armor itself. Torpedoes detonated against the ships, and the explosions folded inward, consumed by the dark surface. The HFY shimmered faintly as thousands of weapons struck it, a dark ripple, like moonlight on black water, and then was still again. Not a single human ship moved, not one shield activated, because none were needed. On the bridge of the HFY, Lieutenant Choi Yuna read the damage report with steady eyes. All ships reporting 0 damage, Captain. Captain Park Sora stood at the center of the bridge, with her hands clasped behind her back. She watched the Korathi barrage on the view screen, beautiful in its way. All that fire and fury pouring against the hull like a storm against a mountain. She waited until the first wave of firing slowed as the Korathi guns recycled. Then she looked at Taeho, who was standing at the rear of the bridge. He nodded once. Sora smiled, a thin, sharp thing with no warmth in it. All ships, she said. Fire. The dark matter cannons spoke. They did not fire beams of light or bolts of plasma. What came out of the human weapons was something the galaxy had never seen. Compressed folds of space-time, visible only as distortions in the starfield, like heat haze rising from black iron. Where they struck, reality bent. The first Korathi warship hit by a dark matter lance did not explode. Its shields did not flicker. They simply stopped existing, erased as if they had never been. Then the hull began to fold. Metal twisted inward, pulled by forces that had no name in Korathi science. The ship crumpled like paper in a fist, silently, and then was gone. 50 ships died in the first 10 seconds. The second volley took another 40. The dark matter lances cut through the formation like invisible blades. Ships came apart in ways that broke every rule of physics the Council had ever known. Some folded inward. Some stretched and tore as local gravity went insane around them. Some simply vanished, pulled into micro-distortions that swallowed them whole and left nothing behind. Draven watched his fleet die. He watched ships he had commanded for decades disappear from his tactical display like candle flames in a hurricane. His officers were shouting, alarms were screaming, damage reports flooded in from every direction. But there was no damage to report, only absence. Ships were not being damaged, they were being erased. Retreat, Draven roared. All ships, fall back. The formation broke. Korathi warships scattered in every direction, engines burning hot, fleeing from an enemy they could not hurt and could not understand. 120 ships were gone. The rest ran. On the HFY, Taeho watched the fleeing ships on the tactical display. Yuna looked up at him, her finger hovering over the targeting controls. She could end this completely. Sir, she asked. Let them go, Taeho said. Sora turned to look at him. We could finish this. Dead fleets tell no stories, Taeho said. He watched the retreating ships grow smaller on the screen. I need them to go home. I need them to sit in front of their leaders and describe what happened here today. I need the Council to hear it from the mouths of their own soldiers. Draven's flagship drifted in the debris field, crippled, its engines dark, but still intact. Taeho had ordered it left alive on purpose. He opened a channel to the burning arm. On the other end, Draven's face appeared on the screen. The Karathi warlord's expression was something Tejo had never seen on an alien face before. It was not anger. It was the look of a man whose entire understanding of the universe had just been torn apart. "Tell your council," Tejo said, "that the mud hut builders send their regards." Draven sat in the dark of his ruined bridge and said nothing. Across the galaxy, the sensor data from the battle began to spread. Military analysts on a dozen council worlds played the recordings over and over, trying to understand what they were seeing. The physics made no sense. The weapons were impossible. A Tier 0 species, the lowest classification in the galactic hierarchy, had just destroyed a Karathi armada with 27 ships and taken 0 casualties. On Telveris Prime, High Arbiter Olen sat in his private chambers and watched the battle footage alone. He watched the Karathi barrage dissolve against the black hulls. He watched ships fold and vanish. He watched an entire armada scatter like prey, running from something they could not see. Olen was 4,000 years old. He had lived through wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of civilizations. He had not felt fear since he was young. The council chambers on Telvaris Prime were built 10,000 years ago from a single piece of crystal grown in the heart of a dying star. The walls were alive with slow-moving light. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into mist. 11 species had governed the Orion Arm from this room for longer than most civilizations had existed. It was a place of absolute power, and for the first time in recorded memory, it was filled with panic. High Arbiter Olen sat at the head of the great table and watched his council tear itself apart. Representatives from all 11 elder species had been called to emergency session. The battle footage from the Vareth Expanse played on a massive holographic display in the center of the room, the same footage that had now been watched on every council world, in every military academy, in every intelligence office across the galaxy. 27 black ships appearing from nothing, a Karathi armada firing with everything it had, and then the counterstrike, ships folding, vanishing, ceasing to exist. The recording had been played 9 times already this morning. No one could stop watching it. Fleet Marshal Draven stood before the council in person. He had been given this chance to deliver his report face to face, to explain what had happened. It was supposed to be an opportunity for redemption. Instead, it was a public execution. Draven was not the same man who had laughed over dinner before the battle. His uniform was clean, but his eyes were not. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with the careful precision of someone walking through broken glass. "The human ships are made of something we have never encountered," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Our weapons had no effect. None. Every shot we fired was absorbed. And their weapons—" He stopped. His lower hands, the ones he usually kept folded behind his back, were trembling. "Their weapons do not destroy. The space where our ships existed simply stopped being there. I watched a cruiser with 800 crew fold in half and disappear without a sound." The chamber was silent. Archon Velk broke it. Velk was Dralith, a species known across 12 star systems for their weapons technology. He was tall and angular, with skin like polished iron and eyes that burned with a cold, steady hatred. He had built weapons that had ended wars. He had designed the plasma lances that armed half the Council's fleets. And he had just watched those weapons bounce off human ships like rain off stone. "The solution is obvious," Velk said. He stood and addressed the full council, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We strike now. We send everything we have to their home system, and we burn it clean. They have 27 ships. We have thousands. Whatever this dark matter technology is, it cannot stand against the combined might of every species in this room. We hit them before they build more. If 27 ships did this," he pointed at the frozen image of the Godeha on the display, Imagine what 200 would do. Emissary Sulin rose from the Nithari delegation seats. Sulin was smaller than most in the room, thin, soft-spoken, with large dark eyes that carried more sadness than anger. Sulin had spent 10 years on Earth, had learned to cook human food, had listened to human music, had watched human children play in parks, and human scientists argue about the nature of reality over cheap coffee. Sulin knew these people. This council created this problem, Sulin said. Every head in the room turned. Sulin's voice was quiet, but steady. We took their resources. We called them insects. We let 40,000 of their people die on Ganymede and wrote one paragraph about it. We pushed them into a corner for 22 years, and now we are surprised that they came out fighting. They have proven themselves. Elevate them. Give them a seat at this table. End this before it gets worse. Velk laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Give them a seat? They are Tier 0. They are children. Children who just destroyed a Karathi armada, Sulin said. The council scientists presented their analysis next, and it made everything worse. The human technology was based on dark matter manipulation, the stabilization and weaponization of the most abundant and least understood substance in the universe. The council's own greatest physicists had attempted this research 4,000 years ago. They had run simulations, built prototypes, and lost 3 research stations to catastrophic failures. The final report had declared dark matter weaponization theoretically impossible, and recommended permanent abandonment of the research. Humanity had solved it in 12 years. The silence that followed this revelation was heavier than the silence after the battle footage. The council had not just been beaten militarily, they had been beaten intellectually. A species they had classified as primitive, a species that had been mining rocks in its own solar system when the council first found them, had achieved something that the galaxy's oldest and most advanced civilizations had declared could not be done. The humiliation cut deeper than any weapon. Olen sat through all of it, with his ancient face perfectly still. He was thinking. He was always thinking. The problem was not the battle. The problem was what the battle meant. If humanity could do this now, with 22 years of secret research and limited resources, what would they be capable of in 50 years? In 100? The trajectory was terrifying. Olen could see it stretching out in front of him like a road with no end. Humanity growing stronger, faster, bolder, while the council stood still. He could not allow that. As the debate raged, something happened that no one in the room expected. A message appeared on Olen's personal console, bypassing every security system, every firewall, every layer of encryption that protected the council's most classified network. It simply appeared, as if placed there by a ghost. The message was from Admiral Kang Tae-ho and General Lee Dong-soo, co-signed by the United Earth government. Commander Baekjae's stealth operatives had delivered it directly into the Council's secure systems, proving that human infiltration capabilities extended far beyond the battlefield. The demands were clear. Full recognition of human sovereignty, reparations for the Ganymede massacre, equal representation on the Council of the Stars, and the immediate and permanent end of the protection mandate. The final line read, "We did not come to the stars to kneel. You have 30 days. Olen read it 3 times. Then he looked up at the council, at Velk's fury, at Sulin's fear, at Draven's broken pride, and he made his decision. He chose war. Not because he believed the council could win easily. Not because he underestimated humanity a second time. He chose war because accepting the ultimatum would mean admitting that the council had been wrong. For 22 years. About everything, and the Council of the Stars did not admit mistakes. He authorized Operation Cleansing Light, the assembly of a combined armada drawn from all 11 species, over 4,000 warships, the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Its target was Earth. Sulin voted against it, Every Nithari representative voted against it. They were overruled. That night, Sulin sat alone in a quiet room and opened an encrypted channel that had been set up years ago, during the long years on Earth, when Sulin had first begun to understand what humanity was. On the other end, Commander Baekje answered. He was calm, as all of Baekje's people were calm, the quiet, patient calm of those who lived in shadows. They are coming, Sulin said. 4,000 ships, every species, everything they have. Sulin's voice broke slightly. I spent a decade among your kind. You deserve better than what is coming. Use this. Survive. Sulin transmitted the full battle plans, fleet positions, attack routes, timing, command structure, everything. Baekje received the data and forwarded it immediately to Admiral Kang Taeho. Taeho read through the plans in his quarters aboard the Godeha, alone, with a cup of cold tea growing colder on his desk. 4,000 ships. The number was staggering. His fleet had grown. New ships had been completed in the weeks since Verath, but he still had only 42. Captain Park Sora came to his quarters an hour later. She had seen the intelligence report. Can we win against 4,000? She asked. Taeho looked up from the star maps he had been studying. His face was calm, but his eyes were working, calculating, planning, seeing patterns in the data that others would miss. We won't need to beat all of them, he said. We just need to break their will. He pulled up a holographic map of the Sol system and began marking positions. The plan took shape in his mind like a living thing. Layers of deception, ambush, and one single devastating strike that would end the war, not by destroying the Council's fleet, but by destroying their belief that they could win. He named it Operation Gyeomun Taeyang. They came from every corner of the Orion Arm. Korathi dreadnoughts with their heavy iron hulls. Drelith cruisers bristling with experimental weapons. Telvari command ships older than human civilization. Selkari frigates. Nithari support vessels pressed into service against the votes of their own delegates. And warships from species whose names most humans had never learned. 4,016 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the orbit of Pluto, and for a moment, the edge of the Sol system looked like someone had poured a handful of stars into the dark. Archon Velk commanded the vanguard, 600 Drelith warships armed with every weapon he had ever designed. Fleet Marshal Draven, given one final chance to redeem himself, commanded the center with a mixed fleet of Korathi and allied vessels. High Arbiter Olen watched from a Telvari command ship, positioned far in the rear, surrounded by a personal guard of 200 ships. He had no intention of being anywhere near the fighting. He was there to witness the end of humanity's defiance. The Armada advanced toward Earth, in a formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. It was the largest military force in galactic history, and it moved with the slow, heavy confidence of something that believed it could not be stopped. Admiral Kang Taeho stood on the bridge of the Godehe and watched them come. The tactical display showed a wall of red contacts, so dense it looked like a solid line. Beside him, Lieutenant Choi Yuna was updating target priorities with the calm efficiency of someone organizing files, not preparing for the largest battle in human history. Captain Park Sora sat in her command chair and cracked her knuckles once, the only sign of tension she ever showed. Taeho opened a fleet-wide channel. His voice was steady. You all know the plan. Phase 1. Commander Baekje, begin the Ghost War. In the darkness between the orbits of Neptune and Uranus, 12 black tide ships shimmered and vanished. Baekje's stealth division, the quietest, most patient operators in the fleet, slipped into the advancing armada like needles sliding into water. They moved through gaps in the formation, drifting past warships whose sensors showed nothing but empty space. The first Drelith cruiser in the vanguard exploded without warning. There was no incoming fire, no missile track, no energy signature. The ship simply blew apart from the inside, as if something had reached in and torn its reactor open. Before the debris had stopped spinning, a second ship died, then a third, then two more, on opposite sides of the formation, at the same moment. Velk's vanguard erupted into chaos. Ships began firing blindly into empty space, their sensors screaming contradictory warnings. A Korathi destroyer targeted a shadow that turned out to be a Selkari frigate and blew it in half. Another cluster of ships opened fire on an asteroid, convinced it was a cloaked enemy. Communications jammed. Coordination collapsed. Baekje's 12 ships moved through the armada like ghosts at a banquet, striking and vanishing, never staying in one place long enough to be found. Velk screamed for order from his flagship. His voice was drowned out by dark matter interference, a low, humming static that filled every frequency and turned the Council's communication network into noise. Within the first hour, the greatest armada in galactic history could not talk to itself. Taeho watched the chaos unfold on the tactical display. The Council fleet was burning fuel, wasting ammunition, and destroying its own coordination, all without his main force firing a single shot. He waited until the confusion reached its peak, until ships were drifting out of formation, until commanders were arguing with each other on broken channels, until fear had replaced discipline. Then he gave the second order. Phase 2. All remaining ships form spear. Drive through the center. 30 black tide warships surged out from behind the moons of Jupiter. They moved in a tight formation, a single spear aimed at the heart of the armada, with the Godeha at the very tip. They hit the Council fleet at full speed, and the dark matter cannons began to fire. The effect was devastating. The spear cut through the center of the armada like a hot blade through snow. Ships on either side of the formation tried to turn and fire, but the black tide ships were moving too fast, too close together, and every shot that missed its target struck another Council ship on the other side. The dark matter lances tore corridors of destruction through the fleet, long straight lines of emptiness where warships had been moments before. In the engineering section of the Godeha, Dr. Yoon Hana watched her black glass systems perform beyond every projection she had made. The dark matter reactors were running at levels she had only theorized about. The armor was absorbing punishment that should have been impossible. Her life's work was doing exactly what she had built it to do, and it was tearing 4,000 ships apart. She watched the destruction on her monitor, and tears ran down her face. Not from pride, from the weight of it. She had built this. Every death out there carried her fingerprint. Yuna's voice came through the ship's speakers, calm and precise. Approaching center of formation, all targets in range for Phase 3. This was the moment. The reason for everything. Taeho stepped forward. All ships, clear the radius. Godeha. Activate the singularity charge. Deep inside the Godeha, in a chamber that Dr. Hana had designed with shaking hands and sleepless nights, a device the size of a small room hummed to life. It was the dark matter singularity charge, a controlled, artificial black hole. Compressed dark matter folded in on itself again and again until it collapsed past a point that physics said should not exist. It would last exactly 90 seconds. That was all Hana could guarantee. 90 seconds of a weaponized singularity, a black sun. The Godeha fired it. The charge launched from the ship's core and detonated at the exact center of the Council armada. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then space bent. Light curved. Stars stretched into long, thin lines. A sphere of absolute darkness bloomed in the middle of the fleet. Not an explosion, not a blast, but an absence. A place where the rules of the universe temporarily stopped working. Every ship within the radius was pulled inward. Metal screamed as hulls compressed. Engines fired uselessly against gravitational forces that no thruster could overcome. Ships spiraled inward, crushing against each other, folding, breaking, disappearing into the dark center. From the outside, it looked exactly like what Taeho had named it, a black sun, a sphere of darkness that swallowed light and matter and everything around it, pulsing once with a terrible silent gravity before collapsing back on itself. It lasted 90 seconds. When it was over, there was nothing left at the center of the formation. No wreckage, no debris, no bodies. Just empty space, a perfect sphere of nothing where over 800 warships had existed moments before. The Council Armada broke. It was not an organized retreat. It was not a strategic withdrawal. It was a stampede. Ships turned and ran in every direction, ignoring orders, ignoring formations, ignoring everything except the primal need to get away from the thing they had just seen. Draven, sitting on his bridge with his face gray and his hands still, ordered a full withdrawal. His voice was barely a whisper. Archon Velk did not retreat. He was Draelith. He had spent his whole life building weapons. He had never run from anything. He aimed his personal dreadnought, the largest ship in his fleet, directly at the Godaya, and charged, all weapons firing. It was brave. It was pointless. Captain Park Sora targeted his ship personally. She did not rush. She lined up the shot with the careful patience of someone threading a needle. A single dark matter lance struck the dreadnought along its spine. The ship split in two, each half spinning away into the void. Velk died in his command chair, staring at a view screen that showed nothing but black. The battle was over. The final count came in slowly, as the surviving council ships limped away from Earth's solar system. 1,400 ships destroyed. Hundreds more crippled and drifting. The rest scattered across 3 star systems. Their crews broken, their officers in shock. Humanity had lost 3 ships. 42 against 4,000, and the humans had lost 3. High Arbiter Olen's command ship had not been touched. Taeho had ordered it left alone, the same strategy as Vareth. He needed Olen alive. He needed the leader of the council to carry the memory of this day for the rest of his very long life. Olen opened a channel to the Godeha. When his face appeared on the screen, the arrogance was gone. The condescension was gone. The patient, superior expression that he had worn for 4,000 years was gone. What remained was the face of an old man who had just watched everything he believed crumble into dust. "I am requesting terms," Olen said. Tahoe looked at him for a long moment. Then he recited the same demands from the ultimatum. Full sovereignty, reparations for Ganymede, council membership, the end of the protection mandate. Word for word, he had not added a single demand. He had not raised the price, despite winning the largest military victory in galactic history. Olen's voice was faint. "Why? You could ask for anything. You could demand our surrender, our territory, our technology." "Because we are not you," Tahoe said. The channel closed. 3 weeks later, a human delegation walked into the council chambers on Telvaris Prime. General Li Dongsu led them. Emissary Sulin walked beside him, the alien who had risked everything to give humanity a chance. Dongsu's scar caught the light of the crystal walls as he took his seat at the great table. Not the seat of a Tier 0 species, not the seat of an observer or a guest. A permanent seat with full voice and veto power. A status no species in the history of the council had ever held. No one objected. No one dared. Admiral Kang Taeho did not attend the ceremony. He stayed on the Godea, orbiting Earth. Captain Park Sora found him on the bridge, standing alone, watching the planet turn below them. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds, the world that had built mud huts and dreamed of stars, and refused for 22 years to break. "What comes next?" Sora asked. Taeho watched the Earth for a long time. The light of the sun moved slowly across the Pacific Ocean, and the planet turned the way it had always turned, patient, steady, alive. "Now we build something worth defending," he said. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The council still governed, but the balance of power had shifted in a way that could never be undone. Humanity expanded, carefully, thoughtfully, building colonies and research stations and trade networks that stretched across the Orion Arm. They shared the dark matter technology with species that earned their trust. They did not weaponize it further. They did not conquer. But the memory of the Black Sun never faded. It lived in the minds of every species that had watched the battle footage. It was taught in military academies. It was whispered about in bars on distant stations. And when someone spoke of Earth, the small blue world that had once been classified as the lowest of the low, they no longer called humans the quiet species. They no longer called them mud hut builders. They called them the ones who darkened the stars, and they said it quietly.